The diner was barely awake when the morning sun slipped through the fogged windows, casting pale light over cracked vinyl booths and tables wiped thin by years of use, and at the corner seat closest to the glass sat Jonathan Reed, a man the world knew as a ruthless millionaire but who, in that quiet hour, was simply a tired single father carrying a grief that no amount of money had ever managed to silence. His suit was flawless, his watch expensive, yet his eyes looked hollow as he stirred his coffee again and again without drinking it, replaying memories of hospital corridors, sleepless nights, and the promise he once made to his late wife that he would protect their daughter no matter what, a promise that had grown heavier with each passing year as his daughter Lily's condition worsened, confining her to wheelchairs and therapy rooms instead of playgrounds and laughter. Jonathan came to this diner not for the food but for the anonymity, for a place where no one knew his name or expected strength from him, and it was here, on an ordinary morning he thought would pass like all the others, that his life quietly began to change. Across the room, a young waitress named Sarah moved between tables with practiced patience, her uniform faded, her posture weary, yet something about her presence felt different, softer, as she approached a booth where a small disabled girl sat in a wheelchair, her legs thin, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to lift a spoon. The girl's mother was nowhere in sight, likely at work or somewhere exhaustion had finally overtaken her, and without hesitation, Sarah knelt beside the child, took the spoon gently, and began feeding her slowly, carefully, whispering encouragement as though the world consisted of only the two of them. Jonathan froze, his hand hovering above the coffee cup, his chest tightening as the scene unfolded, because he had seen this before, lived this before, memorized every fragile movement of a child who wanted independence but needed help, and the sight struck him with such force that he forgot to breathe. Sarah did not rush, did not look around to see if anyone was watching, did not complain about lost time or cold food waiting at other tables. She wiped the child's mouth with tenderness, adjusted her jacket, smiled when the girl managed a small swallow, and in those simple actions Jonathan saw something he had not encountered in years: pure, uncalculated kindness. Around them, customers talked loudly, phones buzzed, plates clattered, but that corner of the diner felt sacred, like a moment carved out of noise and neglect, and Jonathan realized with painful clarity that he had built an empire but lost sight of humanity somewhere along the way. Memories flooded him relentlessly: Lily crying quietly at night so he wouldn't hear, doctors avoiding eye contact, his own helplessness masked behind checkbooks and private rooms, and now here was a stranger, a waitress earning barely enough to survive, giving more care in 5 minutes than most people gave in a lifetime. When Sarah finished feeding the girl, she stayed, brushing her hair gently, making silly faces to coax a smile, and when that smile finally appeared, fragile yet radiant, Jonathan felt something break inside him, a wall he had built brick by brick since his wife's death, and without fully understanding why, he stood up and walked toward them, his expensive shoes echoing softly against the worn floor. Sarah looked up, startled, bracing herself for a complaint or reprimand, but Jonathan's voice, when it came, was low and unsteady as he told her he had been watching, told her that what she did mattered, that it mattered more than she could imagine, and for a moment Sarah just stared at him, unsure how to respond, because no one had ever stopped her to say thank you for being kind, only to tell her to hurry. Jonathan knelt so he was level with the child, introduced himself, and the girl studied his face before offering a tiny smile that carried more weight than any handshake he had ever exchanged, and Sarah explained softly that the girl's mother worked 2 jobs and left her here every morning because childcare was impossible, that she helped because leaving the child alone felt cruel, and as she spoke Jonathan heard no pride in her voice, only fatigue and quiet resolve. He listened, truly listened, something he realized he had not done in years, and in that listening he felt a purpose begin to form, fragile but undeniable, and he placed his card on the table, not flashing wealth but offering possibility, telling Sarah that he ran a foundation he had never truly cared about until that moment, that he wanted to fund care, therapy, education for children like this girl, not as charity but as responsibility, and that he wanted Sarah involved, because money could build walls but compassion built bridges. Tears filled Sarah's eyes, not because of the offer, but because someone had finally seen her heart, and as Jonathan walked back to his seat, the diner felt different, lighter, as if something unseen had shifted. In the weeks that followed, that single act of kindness rippled outward in ways none of them expected. The little girl received consistent therapy and proper care. Her mother cried when she realized her child would no longer be invisible. Sarah left the diner to help Jonathan reshape his foundation into something real, something human, and Jonathan himself changed in ways his board members could not understand, spending more time with children than contracts, listening more than speaking, and, for the first time since his wife's death, feeling worthy of the life he had been given. Lily noticed the change too, her father more present, more patient, reading to her at night instead of answering emails, holding her hand not like something fragile but like something precious, and slowly, laughter returned to their home, fragile at first, then steady. Years later, when reporters asked Jonathan what deal made him successful, he never spoke of numbers or acquisitions. He spoke of a diner, a waitress, and a child who reminded him what wealth was truly for. And today's story stands as a reminder that the smallest moments often carry the greatest power, that kindness needs no permission, and that a single choice to care can change lives forever. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that humanity still exists in a noisy world, then subscribe to this channel, because here we share stories that awaken compassion, restore faith, and prove that even in the darkest corners, light still finds a way. So don't just watch, be part of this journey. Subscribe now and help us keep these powerful stories alive.